The scrolling beat 'em up is one of my favourite genres that seems to have lost popularity these days. But for every one of Sega's Golden Axe and Capcom's Final Fight, you get something like this by Titus, which totally does not understand what makes these games great fun to play in the first place. Wild Streets is a one-player scrolling beat-em-up that was released by Titus in 1989. As well as its ST version, it also came out on the Amiga, DOS, Amstrad CPC, Commodore 64 and ZX Spectrum. Now, normally I go through the good and bad points of the game, but this time I'm going to tell you straight away, this game is terrible and a complete disgrace of one of my favourite genres. So let me go through what I find so terrible about it. 1. The level design. Each level basically only lets you go from left to right, or right to left in the later levels. There's no raised platforms or any reasons to jump, and no background objects to interact with. The reason why you have these elements in these types of games is to vary up the experience from beating up the same enemies over and over again. For instance, say in the bottomless pits in Golden Axe, the falling chandeliers in Final Fight, the cannonballs rolling down the stairs in Ninja Turtles the arcade game, and the wonderful spike traps and spears in the last level of Double Dragon. Essentially, these sort of things forces you to change your tactics. But in this game, because of this, level 1 is essentially the same as level 9 in structure, and so you're doing exactly the same thing over and over again. Number 2, reusing assets. It's also worth mentioning that level 1's backdrops repeats 4 times in only 9 levels. I mean, how lazy can you get? I actually thought the game was looping when I first played it. Additionally, the standard enemy designs are repeated over and over. Now, this normally happens in this genre. Ninja Turtles of course uses the same foot soldier sprite that is recoloured. The difference here is that whereas Konami did reuse the same sprite, each different colour of foot soldier has a different attack pattern. All the enemies in Wild Street act exactly the same, and can be dispatched in exactly the same way. In later levels, they change from dying after 2 hits to 4 hits, but it just makes it more annoying when you include the next point. Number 3. No attack patterns. In scrolling fighters, the designers decide which enemies to appear at which point in the level. Here they appear randomly and will continually respawn unless you keep moving. This is insanely annoying in levels 8 and 9, where if you're too slow, you can actually find yourself being pushed backwards because the enemies appear before you have a chance to kill one. Point 4. Lazy bosses. The bosses do have a slightly different attack pattern, but they do have a habit of running at you and trapping you in a corner. It's always fun when the enemies are on the edge of the screen and you can't move without getting hit. Unfortunately, this happens an awful lot in the game until you realise that the bosses are actually insanely easy. Just save your gun until the boss screen, and use all your bullets on him. It seems to work much better than using your fists. Number 5. No multiplayer. There are 2 hero sprites on the screen at any one time, in the Panther and the Man. Unfortunately, you have zero control over the Panther. He just attacks whenever he feels like it, which is kind of disappointing in that he dominates the box cover. Worse, halfway through the game, the cat disappears, never to be seen again, and you're forced to bodyguard the Chief of Intelligence through the levels in reverse, and he doesn't do anything to help. Point 6. Programmers wanted. I'm not sure if this is a joke or a cry for help. I want to say it's the second one because someone really should have stepped in here. Number 7. Running away. If you ever want to finish this game, and you really shouldn't think about doing such a thing, try not to actually attack the enemies, especially if they're behind you. Just walk away, and they'll never catch up. It's such a chore to actually attack someone, and I noticed that if you are too fast, then attacks can go right through them. You have to slow down your rhythm just to get over the dodgy hitboxes. Overall, Titus didn't have a great record of making games, and although this isn't their worst game, it's still pretty bad, and I personally would not recommend playing it on any system, let alone this Atari ST version. It's lazy, boring, and the ending, like all bad games, is a complete waste of time, which, just like this game, is not a good thing. Now, this following recording is one that I previously did from about a month ago. Unfortunately, when I went to go to do the cut, I realised I kind of missed recording about half of level 1. Rather than play the whole crappy game again, I decided to stick 2 playthroughs together. One of level 1 and a second playthrough of levels 2 to 9, so that's why the score suddenly jumps up between levels. So anyway, this is my full playthrough for Wild Streets.